Victoria Hayes had always believed she knew her husband. 16 years of marriage seemed like more than enough time to understand every expression, every gesture, every unspoken thought. She knew Michael liked his coffee black with exactly 1 sugar cube. She knew he fidgeted with his wedding ring when he was nervous. She knew the way his voice changed when he talked to their children, softer and more patient than it ever was with anyone else. But on the morning of her 40th birthday, Victoria would discover just how little she actually knew about the man sleeping beside her. She woke to the smell of coffee and something sweet baking in the oven. Unusual. Michael rarely cooked, especially not breakfast on a weekday. Victoria stretched, noticing the empty space next to her where her husband should have been, and heard sounds drifting up from the kitchen, clattering dishes, the refrigerator opening and closing. The familiar hum of their old coffee maker that Michael kept saying he'd replace, but never did. Victoria pulled on her robe and padded downstairs, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floors they'd refinished together 5 years ago. The house was a comfortable split level in a quiet Austin neighborhood, nothing extravagant but theirs, earned through years of combined teaching and sales salaries, mortgage payments that sometimes felt crushing, and the pride of ownership. When she reached the kitchen, she found Michael standing at the counter, arranging pancakes on a plate. He'd changed out of his usual rushed morning routine of grabbing whatever was quickest. Today, he wore jeans and a button-down shirt, his sandy hair still damp from the shower. He looked up when she entered, and his face broke into a smile that reminded her of the man she'd married 16 years ago. "Happy birthday," he said, gesturing to the small table by the window. He'd set it with their good plates, the ones they usually saved for holidays. A vase held fresh tulips, her favorite flowers. A wrapped box sat next to a handmade card decorated with crayon drawings that could only be Zoe's work. Victoria felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. The past few months had been difficult. Michael had been distant, distracted, always working late or traveling for his pharmaceutical sales job. She'd started to wonder if they were drifting into that territory some long-married couples fell into, where they became roommates more than partners. But this effort, this thoughtfulness, maybe she'd been wrong. Maybe they were going to be okay. "You did all this?" she asked, moving to the table. "The kids helped with the card before I took them to school early," Michael said, bringing over the plate of pancakes. "I wanted to do something special. You deserve it." Victoria sat down, looking at the spread before her. Coffee in her favorite mug, the one that said, "World's Best Mom," that Caleb had given her years ago. Pancakes with fresh blueberries, something Michael knew she loved. The tulips, catching the morning light. "This is wonderful," she said softly. "Thank you." Michael sat across from her, watching her eat with an expression she couldn't quite read. Pride? Relief? Something else? He pushed the card toward her. "Open this first." Victoria picked up the card. The front showed a crayon drawing of what was presumably their family, 4 stick figures holding hands in front of a house. Inside, in Zoe's careful 10-year-old handwriting, it read, "Happy birthday, Mom. You are the best mom ever. Love, Zoe, and Caleb." Below that, in Caleb's messier 14-year-old scrawl, "Happy birthday. Love you." And at the bottom, in Michael's handwriting, "To my beautiful wife, 16 years and counting. I love you, Michael." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. When had she become so emotional? Maybe it was turning 40. Maybe it was the relief of seeing Michael try, of feeling like maybe they hadn't lost each other after all. "There's more," Michael said, sliding the wrapped box toward her. His voice held a note of something, anticipation maybe, or nervousness. Victoria couldn't tell. She unwrapped the box carefully, peeling back the elegant silver paper to reveal a small jewelry box from Henderson and Company, one of Austin's most expensive jewelers. Her heart skipped. They'd been careful with money lately. Caleb needed new equipment for baseball. Zoe's dance classes weren't cheap. The house always needed something repaired. They didn't do extravagant gifts. "Michael, you didn't have to," she started. "Just open it," he said, leaning forward slightly. Victoria opened the box and caught her breath. Inside lay a delicate gold necklace with a diamond pendant, small but beautiful, catching the light in a way that made it sparkle like captured starlight. It was elegant, understated, exactly her style. The kind of necklace she'd admired in store windows, but never bought for herself. "It's beautiful," she breathed, lifting it from the box. The chain was fine but sturdy, the pendant the perfect size, not too large, not too showy, just right. "I saw it and thought of you immediately," Michael said, and his voice was warm, genuine. "You deserve beautiful things, Vic. You work so hard. You take care of all of us. I wanted you to have something that showed how much I appreciate you." Victoria stood and moved around the table to hug him. Michael stood too, wrapping his arms around her, and for a moment, everything felt right, like they'd found their way back to each other. Like the distance she'd felt these past months had been her imagination. "I love it," she said against his shoulder. "I love you." "I love you too," he replied, and she felt him press a kiss to the top of her head. They stood like that for a long moment, before Michael gently pulled back. "I have to get to work. Big meeting this morning with the regional director. But I wanted to make sure you had a good birthday start." "You did," Victoria assured him. "This was perfect." Michael smiled, that same expression from earlier that she couldn't quite interpret. "Good. That's good. I'll see you tonight. We can do dinner, just the four of us, wherever you want." After he left, Victoria cleaned up the breakfast dishes, the necklace still in its box on the table. She kept glancing at it, smiling. Maybe she'd been overthinking things. Maybe Michael's distance had just been work stress. Maybe they were going to be fine. She picked up the box to take it upstairs, to put the necklace in her jewelry drawer. As she lifted it, a small card fluttered out from under the velvet lining where the necklace had rested. Victoria bent to pick it up, assuming it was the store receipt, or maybe another note from Michael. It was a small cream-colored card, the kind that came with jewelry purchases for gift messages. Written in Michael's distinctive handwriting, it read, "For the love of my life, every day with you is a gift. You complete me in every way. I love you more than words can express. Happy birthday, Michael." For Amanda. Victoria's hand froze. She read the last line again and again. For Amanda, not for Victoria, not for Vic, not even for my wife. Amanda. The kitchen seemed to tilt slightly. Victoria gripped the edge of the counter, staring at the card in her hand. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. This had to be a mistake, some kind of error. The store must have mixed up cards. That was it. That was the only explanation that made sense. Except Michael's handwriting was unmistakable. The slight slant to his letters, the way he made his capital M, the distinctive loop on his Y. She'd seen his handwriting on grocery lists and birthday cards and love notes for 16 years. This was his writing. For Amanda. Victoria's mind raced. Who was Amanda? A sister? No, Michael was an only child. A cousin? He had a few cousins, but none named Amanda that she could remember. A co-worker? Someone he was supposed to give a birthday gift to? But then, why would the message be so intimate? Love of my life, you complete me? She read the card again, this time focusing on the words themselves. Not the kind of message you write to a co-worker, not even to a friend. These were words you wrote to someone you loved, someone you were in a relationship with, someone who wasn't your wife. Victoria set the card down carefully on the counter, her hands shaking. She looked at the necklace, still beautiful in its box, now transformed into something else entirely. Evidence, proof, a window into a truth she wasn't sure she wanted to see. She pulled out her phone and searched for Henderson & Company's number. Her fingers fumbled on the screen twice before she managed to dial correctly. Henderson & Company. This is Melissa speaking. How may I help you today? Victoria forced her voice to sound normal, casual. "Hi. My husband recently purchased a necklace from your store. I was calling to verify the purchase details. The name on the account would be Michael Hayes." "Of course. Let me look that up for you." There was a pause, the sound of typing. "Yes, I see the purchase here. Beautiful piece. The gold pendant with the diamond. Is there an issue with the necklace?" "No, the necklace is fine. I was actually wondering, did my husband purchase more than one item that day?" More typing. "Let me see. Yes, actually he did. He purchased 2 identical necklaces on the same visit, both with custom gift cards that he wrote himself here at the store. Such a thoughtful gentleman. He said they were for his wife and his sister." Victoria's stomach dropped. His sister. That's what he told me. He was very specific about the messages for each card. Made sure they were perfect before we packaged everything up. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" "Everything's fine," Victoria lied. "Thank you for your help." She ended the call and stood in her kitchen, in the house she'd shared with Michael for over a decade, holding a birthday gift meant for another woman. 2 identical necklaces, 2 custom cards, one for his wife, one for Amanda. Except Michael didn't have a sister. The kitchen was completely silent except for the ticking of the clock on the wall and the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking. Victoria looked around at her life, the refrigerator covered in Zoe's artwork and Caleb's baseball schedule. The coffee maker Michael had promised to replace. The table where they'd eaten thousands of meals as a family. The window looking out onto the backyard where she'd taught both kids to ride bikes. Everything looked the same as it had an hour ago. But nothing was the same. Nothing would ever be the same again. Victoria picked up the card and took a photo of it with her phone. Then she put the necklace back in its box and carried everything upstairs to her bedroom. She sat on the edge of the bed she'd shared with Michael for 16 years and allowed herself exactly 5 minutes to cry. Then she dried her eyes, washed her face, and started planning. Michael would be home around 6:30. That gave her approximately 9 hours to decide what to do with the information she'd just discovered. 9 hours to figure out who Amanda was. 9 hours to determine if this was what it looked like, or if there was some innocent explanation she hadn't considered. But deep in her gut, in that place where instinct lives and truth resonates, Victoria already knew. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an innocent mix-up. This was exactly what it appeared to be. Her husband was having an affair, and he'd been careless enough, or arrogant enough, or simply thoughtless enough to give his wife the gift he'd intended for his mistress. Victoria opened her laptop and started with the obvious: Facebook. She searched for Amanda combined with pharmaceutical sales and Austin. Several results came up. She scrolled through profiles until she found one that made her pause. Amanda Price, 32 years old, medical sales representative. Her profile showed a professional headshot, an attractive blonde woman with a bright smile. Her work history showed she was employed by MedTech Solutions, the same company that employed Michael. Victoria clicked through Amanda's photos. There weren't many public ones. Most were set to private, but the few she could see showed a woman who traveled frequently, attended industry conferences, lived what appeared to be a successful single life. There were no photos with Michael. Nothing obvious. But there wouldn't be, would there? Not if they were being careful. Victoria logged into their joint bank account next, something she'd done hundreds of times to pay bills and track expenses. She'd never looked at it with suspicion before. Now she searched for anything unusual, and found it. Henderson and Company. A charge for $2,400 3 days ago. Not $1,200 for one necklace. $2,400 for 2. Victoria scrolled back further. More charges caught her eye now that she was looking. Bellini's Restaurant, one of Austin's most expensive Italian places. $385 2 weeks ago. She remembered that night. Michael had said he was working late, closing a big deal with a difficult client. The Capitol Hotel. $650 4 weeks ago. That was the weekend Michael had supposedly gone to a pharmaceutical conference in San Antonio. Victoria had stayed home with the kids. Romano's florist. $190. She'd never received flowers recently. When was the last time Michael had bought her flowers? The charges went back months. Dinners, hotels, gifts, all at times when Michael had been working late, or traveling for business, or meeting with clients. Victoria added up the numbers in her head. Over $4,000. $4,000 spent on someone else, while she'd been clipping coupons and putting off buying herself new work clothes because they needed to save money. She opened their shared cell phone account next. They were on a family plan. Everything linked. She'd never checked Michael's usage before. Why would she? She'd trusted him. Scrolling through his call logs and text message timestamps was like watching her marriage dissolve in real time. Hundreds of texts to a number she didn't recognize. Long phone calls late at night, at times when he'd been in the house, when she'd thought he was asleep or working in his home office. Victoria grabbed a pen and notebook and started making a list. Every charge, every suspicious timestamp, every late night, every business trip. She worked methodically, documenting everything she found. By noon, she had 5 pages of notes. The evidence was overwhelming, but she needed more. She needed to see for herself. Victoria remembered Michael kept an old phone in his car, a backup he'd mentioned once. She'd never thought anything of it. Now she wondered if it wasn't a backup at all. She went out to the driveway. Michael's car was gone, of course, at the office. But he'd been driving her car lately while his was in the shop for repairs. Her car was here. Victoria opened the glove compartment. Insurance papers, registration, owner's manual. She checked under the seats. Fast food receipts. A pen. Then she opened the center console. There, buried under some charging cables and old parking passes, was a phone. Not Michael's regular phone. A different model. Cheaper. The kind you'd buy specifically to keep something hidden. Victoria turned it on. It wasn't password protected. Apparently, Michael had never imagined his wife would go looking. The phone had one contact saved. Just one. Amanda P. Victoria's hands were shaking as she opened the messages. There were hundreds of them, dating back 4 months. She started reading from the beginning. January. Had such a great time at the conference. Can't stop thinking about you. You too. This is crazy, but I can't help it. When can I see you again? February. I miss you already. Today was perfect. You make me feel things I haven't felt in years. I know this is complicated, but I can't stay away from you. March. I love you. I know it's fast, but I love you. I love you too. I've never felt this way about anyone. We'll figure this out. I promise. You're worth it. The messages grew more intimate, more detailed. Plans for secret meetings, complaints about how hard it was to find time alone. And then, buried in a conversation from 2 weeks ago, Victoria found something that made her breath catch. Amanda, I still can't believe how lucky I am. After my divorce, I thought I'd never find someone like you. Michael, I'm the lucky one. You're everything my ex-wife wasn't. She's so focused on her job and the kids she barely notices I exist anymore. Ex-wife. Michael had told Amanda he was divorced. Amanda had no idea Victoria existed, had no idea she was falling in love with a married man. She thought Michael was single, available, hers. Victoria set the phone down carefully, afraid she might throw it. The betrayal was layered now. Michael hadn't just cheated. He'd built an entire false life. He'd told Amanda they had a future together. He'd made her think she was special, chosen, loved by a man who was free to love her. And all the while, he'd been coming home to Victoria, sleeping in their bed, eating meals with their children, living his double life with apparent ease. Victoria took photos of the messages, all of them. She sent them to her own email in batches, creating a backup of the backup. Then she put the phone exactly where she'd found it and went back inside. She sat at the kitchen table and called Diana, her best friend of 12 years. "Hey, birthday girl," Diana answered cheerfully. "How's 40 treating you so far?" "Diana, I need to tell you something." Victoria's voice was surprisingly steady. "Michael's having an affair." There was a beat of silence. Then, "What? Are you sure?" Victoria told her everything. The card, the necklaces, the secret phone, the messages. Diana listened without interrupting, and when Victoria finished, her friend's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "That son of a bitch. What do you need? What can I do? I need to think. I need to figure out what to do next. Do you want to confront him tonight?" Victoria thought about it. Part of her wanted to throw the evidence in Michael's face the moment he walked through the door, wanted to scream and rage and demand answers. But another part, the part that had spent 16 years teaching literature to teenagers, understood the power of narrative control. If she confronted him now, while she was still reeling, still processing, he'd have the advantage. He'd be prepared with excuses. He'd turn it around somehow, make her doubt what she knew to be true. No, she needed to be smarter than that. "Not yet," Victoria said slowly. "I'm going to let him think I don't know. I'm going to gather more evidence. And when I'm ready, when I have everything I need, then I'll confront him. On my terms, not his." "That's my girl," Diana said fiercely. "Whatever you need, I'm here. Day or night. You call, and I come running." After they hung up, Victoria made one more call. To Thomas Reed, a divorce attorney whose name she'd gotten from a colleague at school who'd gone through a messy divorce 2 years ago. "Mr. Reed's office, this is Sandra speaking. I'd like to schedule a consultation. As soon as possible." "Of course. May I ask what this is regarding?" "Divorce. My husband is having an affair, and I have extensive documentation." "I see. Mr. Reed has an opening tomorrow afternoon at 2. Would that work?" "That would be perfect." Victoria hung up and looked around her kitchen again. Her birthday pancakes were still on the table, cold now. The tulips Michael had bought still sat in their vase, bright and beautiful and meaningless. She picked up the jewelry box with the necklace and carried it to the living room. She set it carefully on the coffee table where Michael would see it when he came home. Let him think she loved it. Let him think he'd gotten away with his mistake. The rest of the day passed in a strange blur. Victoria went through the motions of normal life. She graded papers for her literature class. She prepared dinner. She texted back cheerful responses when friends messaged birthday wishes. When Zoe and Caleb got home from school, she hugged them tighter than usual. They chattered about their days, oblivious to the earthquake that had fractured their mother's world. Victoria listened and responded and made them snacks and helped Zoe with homework, all while her mind worked through scenarios and possibilities. At 6:25, she heard Michael's car in the driveway. She was in the kitchen, stirring sauce for pasta, when he walked in. "Hey," he said, setting his briefcase down. "How was the rest of your birthday?" Victoria turned and smiled. It felt like her face might crack from the effort. "It was good. Quiet. I've been admiring the necklace all day." Michael's face relaxed. "Yeah? You really like it?" "I love it. It was so thoughtful. Thank you again." He crossed the kitchen and kissed her cheek. Victoria forced herself not to flinch. He smelled like his usual cologne, nothing different. No perfume from another woman. He was careful then. Or maybe they'd learned not to leave obvious traces. "Where are the kids?" Michael asked, pulling a beer from the refrigerator. "Zoe's in her room drawing. Caleb's doing homework. Dinner will be ready in about 20 minutes. "Perfect. I'm starving." They ate dinner as a family, the 4 of them around the table. Michael asked the kids about school. Zoe talked about an art project. Caleb mentioned an upcoming baseball game. Victoria participated in the conversation while studying her husband's face, looking for signs of guilt or nervousness or anything that would indicate he knew she'd found his secret. She saw nothing. He was relaxed, comfortable, eating pasta and drinking beer and laughing at Zoe's jokes like he didn't have a care in the world, like he wasn't building a relationship with another woman while pretending to be a devoted family man. After dinner, After the kids went upstairs to finish homework and get ready for bed, Victoria and Michael sat in the living room. The necklace box was still on the coffee table. "I actually wanted to ask you something," Victoria said carefully. "About the necklace?" She watched Michael's face, saw the tiniest flicker of something. Fear? Concern? It was gone almost instantly, replaced by casual interest. "Sure, what's up?" Victoria picked up the box and opened it, taking out the small gift card. This card came with it, but I think there might have been a mix-up. She handed it to him and watched his face drain of color as he read it, watched his hand tremble slightly, watched him swallow hard before looking up at her. "What do you mean?" His voice was too tight, too controlled. "It says, for Amanda at the bottom." "Who's Amanda?" Michael stared at the card for a long moment. Victoria could almost see his mind working, scrambling for an explanation. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. "That's weird. That must be an error from the store. They probably got cards mixed up or something." "That's what I thought too," Victoria said, keeping her tone light, curious rather than accusatory. "So I called the store to ask about it." She watched Michael go even paler. "You called the store?" "I did. The woman I spoke to said you purchased 2 identical necklaces, both with custom gift cards that you wrote yourself. She remembered you specifically, said you were very careful about the messages." The silence that followed was deafening. Michael opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Victoria, I can explain. Can you?" She kept her voice level, though her heart was pounding. "Because I'm really curious who Amanda is and why you bought her an identical necklace with a romantic message." "She's a colleague," Michael said quickly. Too quickly. "From work. It was her birthday, too. Weird coincidence. And I thought it would be a nice gesture since we're on the same sales team." Victoria tilted her head, studying him. "You write 'love of my life' on birthday cards for work colleagues?" "No, that must have been meant for yours and they switched them." "Michael." Victoria's voice was soft but firm. "The woman at the store said you wrote both cards right there. She watched you, so tell me again. Who is Amanda?" Michael set the card down and ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Victoria recognized as his tell when he was stressed. "Okay, look, Amanda is someone I work with. We're friends. We've gotten close over the past few months. It's not what you're thinking." "What am I thinking?" "That something's going on. That we're—" He couldn't seem to say the words. "That you're having an affair?" Michael flinched like she'd struck him. "It's not like that. We're just friends. She's going through a rough time after her divorce, and I've been supporting her as a friend. That's it. Friends who get identical expensive jewelry? I made a mistake, okay? It was inappropriate. I see that now. But Victoria, I swear, nothing has happened between us." Victoria looked at her husband, this man she'd built a life with, and saw a stranger who was lying to her face. She could push now, could tell him about the phone, the messages, the hotel charges, could destroy his lies with truth. But that's not what she wanted. Not yet. "I want you to sleep in the guest room tonight," she said quietly. "Victoria, come on. Let's talk about this." "No. I need space to think. You bought another woman a necklace, Michael. An expensive romantic necklace. At minimum, that shows incredibly poor judgment. At worst, it's exactly what it looks like. Either way, I need time to process this." Michael stood, looking like he wanted to argue, then seemed to think better of it. Okay, if that's what you need. But Victoria, I love you. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're imagining, you're wrong. I love you." "Then you shouldn't have bought Amanda a necklace," Victoria said simply. She watched him gather a pillow and blanket and head to the guest room, watched him close the door. Only then did she allow herself to breathe. Tomorrow she'd meet with the divorce attorney. She'd show him everything she'd found. She'd start the legal process of protecting herself and her children. But tonight, she sat in her living room, in the house where she'd thought she was building a life, holding a necklace that was meant for another woman, and let herself feel the full weight of her husband's betrayal. And as she sat there in the quiet, Victoria made a decision. She wouldn't just survive this. She would take control of it. She would document everything. She would be strategic and smart and careful. And when the time came, when she had everything she needed, she would make sure Michael understood exactly what he'd lost. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. Very soon. The next morning, Victoria woke early, before the alarm. She'd barely slept, her mind cycling through everything she'd discovered, every lie Michael had told, every moment of the past 4 months that now looked different through the lens of betrayal. But when she got out of bed and went through her morning routine, her movements were calm, deliberate. She had a plan now. That made all the difference. Michael emerged from the guest room looking haggard, dark circles under his eyes. He approached her carefully in the kitchen, like she was a wild animal that might bolt. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. The kids were still upstairs, getting ready for school. "Not now," Victoria said, pouring coffee. "I have a lot to think about. And you need to get to work." "Victoria, please. I know how this looks, but I swear to you, Amanda and I are just friends. I made a stupid mistake with the necklace. I was trying to be nice because she's been going through a hard time, and I didn't think about how it would look. But there's nothing going on." Victoria turned to face him fully. His eyes were pleading, desperate. She wondered if this was what he looked like when he lied to Amanda about being divorced. If he used this same earnest expression when he told her he loved her. "Michael, if you want any chance of us working through this, you need to give me space right now. I can't process this with you hovering. Go to work. We'll talk later." It wasn't entirely a lie. They would talk later. Just not the kind of conversation Michael was hoping for. After he left, after she'd gotten Zoe and Caleb off to school with kisses and reassurances that everything was fine, Victoria drove to the Austin Public Library. She needed to use a computer that wasn't connected to their home network, wasn't linked to any account Michael might have access to. She was being paranoid, probably, but careful felt better than sorry. At the library, she created a new email account Michael didn't know about. Then she forwarded every photo, every screenshot, every piece of documentation she'd gathered from her regular email to this new secure account. She uploaded everything to a cloud storage service and set up two-factor authentication. She made backups of her backups. Only when she was satisfied that the evidence was safe, that Michael couldn't somehow delete or destroy it, did Victoria allow herself to think about the meeting with Thomas Reed. His office was in a professional building downtown, all glass and steel and expensive-looking furniture. Sandra, the receptionist, greeted her warmly and offered coffee. Victoria accepted, needing something to do with her hands. Thomas Reed was in his late 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes that had clearly seen a lot of marital disasters. He shook her hand firmly and gestured for her to sit in one of the comfortable chairs across from his desk. "Mrs. Hayes, Sandra mentioned you have documentation regarding your husband's infidelity. Before we begin, I want you to know that everything you tell me is confidential. My job is to help you navigate this situation in the way that best protects your interests and those of your children." Victoria nodded and pulled out her phone. "I have quite a bit to show you." For the next hour, she walked Thomas through everything. The birthday gift with Amanda's name, the call to the jewelry store, the secret phone in the car, the messages between Michael and Amanda, the bank statements showing thousands of dollars spent on restaurants, hotels, gifts, the pattern of lies stretching back 4 months. Thomas took notes, occasionally asking questions. How long had they been married? 16 years. Were there children? Yes, 2, 14 and 10. Was the house in both their names? Yes. Did they have joint bank accounts? Yes. Did Michael have any significant assets from before the marriage? No. Everything had been built together. When Victoria finished, Thomas sat back in his chair, studying the notes he'd made. "You've done exceptional work documenting all of this," he said. Many clients come to me with suspicions, but little proof. You've built a comprehensive case. The fact that he told his paramour he was divorced is particularly significant. It demonstrates a pattern of deception and planning, not just a moment of weakness. "What happens now?" Victoria asked. "That depends on what you want. Do you want to try to save the marriage? Or are you interested in proceeding with divorce?" Victoria had thought about this question all night. Once, she would have done anything to keep her family intact. Would have gone to counseling, would have tried to understand what drove Michael to cheat, would have worked to rebuild trust. But that was before she'd read those messages, before she'd seen how easily he lied, before she'd understood that he'd built an entire relationship with another woman while pretending to be a devoted husband. "I want a divorce," she said clearly, "but I want to do it strategically. I don't want to just react emotionally. I want to make sure my children are protected. I want to make sure I'm in the strongest possible position." Thomas nodded approvingly. "Smart." Texas is a community property state, which means assets acquired during the marriage are generally split 50-50. However, Texas also recognizes fault divorce. Adultery can impact property division, especially when marital funds have been used to support the affair, which is clearly the case here. We can likely argue for a division more favorable to you, potentially 65-35, or even better. What about custody? With children aged 14 and 10, the court will consider their preferences, especially Caleb's at 14. But based on what you've shown me, there's no evidence your husband is an unfit parent, just an unfaithful spouse. We'll likely be looking at some form of joint custody. However, given that you're the primary caregiver and you have evidence of his poor judgment in conducting this affair, we can push for primary physical custody with him having standard visitation. Victoria absorbed this information. She'd known intellectually that she'd have to share custody, but hearing it stated so plainly still hurt. Zoe and Caleb would have to split their time between houses, pack bags, adjust to new routines. How long will this take? If it's contested, 6 months to a year. If he agrees to terms, we can have everything finalized in as little as 3 months. But before we file anything, I recommend we do a few things. First, I want you to open a bank account in your name only, not to hide assets, but to protect yourself if he decides to drain your joint accounts. Put enough in there to cover several months of expenses for you and the children. Victoria nodded, making mental notes. Second, I want you to make copies of everything financial. Tax returns for the past 5 years, bank statements, credit card statements, investment accounts, his business records if you have access to them, everything. We need a complete picture of your marital assets. I can do that. Third, and this is important, do not tell him you're planning to file for divorce until we're ready. The element of surprise gives us a strategic advantage. If he knows it's coming, he might try to hide assets, delete evidence, paint himself as the victim. We want to control the narrative. He's already sleeping in the guest room. He knows I'm upset about the necklace. How long can I pretend I'm just thinking things over? Thomas considered. Give it a week, maybe 2. Tell him you need time to process. Meanwhile, gather everything we need. When you're ready, we'll file and have him served. The shock and the pressure will make him more likely to agree to favorable terms rather than drag this out in a lengthy court battle. They talked for another 30 minutes, going over legal strategy, discussing what the next steps would look like. Thomas gave her a detailed checklist of documents to gather and information to compile. When Victoria finally left his office, she felt something she hadn't felt since finding that card yesterday, a sense of control. She stopped at a different bank than the one where she and Michael had their joint accounts. She opened a checking and savings account in her name only and transferred $5,000 from their joint savings. It was a significant amount, but not so much that Michael would immediately notice. Just enough to give her a financial cushion. Over the next 3 days, Victoria lived a double life. During the day, while Michael was at work and the kids were at school, she became a detective in her own marriage. She photographed tax returns from the filing cabinet in Michael's home office. She downloaded years of bank and credit card statements. She found his partnership agreement for his pharmaceutical sales position and made copies of his commission structure and bonus information. She discovered more disturbing patterns in the financial records. The affair had started in January, but the unusual spending had begun even earlier. In December, there was a charge for $600 at a boutique women's clothing store. Victoria had received nothing from that store for Christmas. In November, a $500 charge at a spa in downtown Austin. Again, not for her. The affair might have started in January, but Michael had been grooming Amanda, pursuing her, spending money on her since at least November. Nearly 6 months of deception. Victoria also spent hours going through the messages on the secret phone, which she checked each morning after Michael left for work. The messages painted a picture of a relationship that had escalated quickly. Michael hadn't just fallen into temptation. He'd actively cultivated this affair. He'd pursued Amanda deliberately, told her elaborate stories about his failed marriage, his difficult divorce, his loneliness. In one message from February, Michael had written, "I know we should probably slow down, but I can't. You're exactly what I needed. Everything my marriage wasn't." Amanda's response, "I feel the same way. I never thought I'd find someone after my divorce. But you're different. You actually listen. You actually care about what I think and feel." It would have been almost touching if it wasn't built entirely on lies. Amanda thought she'd found a divorced man who understood her pain, who was ready for a new relationship. She had no idea she was the other woman in an ongoing marriage. Victoria found herself feeling an unexpected sympathy for Amanda. Yes, she was sleeping with Victoria's husband, but she didn't know he was anyone's husband. In Amanda's mind, she was dating a single man who'd been honest about his past. The betrayal was Michael's alone. At night, Victoria maintained the facade of a wife, considering reconciliation. She was civil to Michael, but distant. She didn't yell or cry or accuse. She just remained cool, thoughtful, as if she was genuinely weighing whether their marriage could survive his mistake with the necklace. Michael, for his part, was trying. He came home early. He offered to cook dinner. He asked about her day with what seemed like genuine interest. He didn't push for physical intimacy, seeming to understand that she needed space. Several times, Victoria saw him looking at her with something like fear in his eyes, as if he was afraid she might truly leave him. Good, she thought. He should be afraid. On the 4th morning after discovering the affair, Victoria woke to find Michael already dressed for work, sitting on the edge of their bed. He'd been sleeping in the guest room but had apparently come in to talk before she woke up. "I can't take this anymore," he said quietly. "This distance between us. Victoria, I love you. I know I screwed up with that stupid necklace, but I swear to you, nothing happened with Amanda. We're just friends, and I was trying to be supportive. I see now how inappropriate that was. But please, you have to believe me." Victoria sat up, pulling the covers around her. "Do you still talk to her?" Michael hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "We work together. I can't avoid her completely. But I've pulled back. I've made it clear that our friendship was inappropriate and needs to have better boundaries." It was a carefully worded answer, Victoria noted. He didn't say he'd stopped talking to Amanda. He said he'd pulled back. She wondered if he'd checked the secret phone this morning, if he knew she'd been reading his messages every day. "I need more time," Victoria said. "This isn't something I can just get over, Michael. You gave another woman an expensive gift with a romantic message. Even if you're telling the truth and nothing physical happened, that's still an emotional betrayal. That's still you investing in a relationship with someone else." I know, and I'm sorry. What can I do? Just tell me what you need from me." What Victoria needed was for him to have never done this in the first place. What she needed was to go back to a time when she'd trusted her husband completely, when her marriage had felt secure. But that was impossible. That version of their life was gone forever. "Just give me space," she said, "and be patient." After he left, Victoria checked the secret phone. New messages from the night before, sent after midnight when Michael had supposedly been asleep in the guest room. "Michael, I think she's starting to believe me. I just need a few more days to smooth this over. Amanda, I hate this. I hate that you have to deal with your ex-wife's drama. It's not fair that she's making this difficult for you. Michael, I know, baby, but we knew it would be complicated. She's struggling with the divorce being final. She keeps trying to find reasons to pull me back in. Amanda, just remember, you deserve to be happy. You deserve to move on. Don't let guilt make you do something you'll regret. Michael, I won't. You're my future. She's my past. I just need to handle this carefully so it doesn't impact the custody arrangement with the kids." Victoria read the messages 3 times, each reading making her angrier. Michael wasn't pulling back. He wasn't setting boundaries. He was actively maintaining the affair while lying to Victoria about it. And he was using their children as an excuse, pretending he was worried about custody, when he was really just trying to manage both relationships simultaneously. She took screenshots of the new messages and added them to her evidence file. That afternoon, Victoria drove to a part of Austin she rarely visited, an upscale area where Michael had supposedly attended several business dinners over the past months. She found the apartment complex, whose address had appeared on one of the credit card statements. Meridian Heights. Luxury apartments starting at $3,000 a month. She sat in her car across the street, not sure what she was hoping to see. Confirmation, maybe. Visual proof to match the documentary evidence. She checked the time. 3:15 in the afternoon. Michael was supposed to be in meetings all afternoon. That's what he'd told her at breakfast. At 3:45, a familiar car pulled into the parking lot. Michael's silver sedan. Victoria watched him park and get out, carrying his briefcase and what looked like a bag from a bakery. He walked to the entrance and pressed a button on the intercom. A moment later, the door clicked open and he went inside. Victoria checked the app on her phone that showed the location of Michael's company phone, the one she knew about. It showed him at the Meridian Heights address. He wasn't even trying to hide where he was, probably because he thought Victoria was at work, teaching her afternoon classes. What he didn't know was that she'd taken personal days for the rest of the week, telling her principal she had a family emergency to deal with. She waited. 45 minutes passed. An hour and 15 minutes. Then Amanda appeared at the entrance. She was even prettier in person than in her Facebook photos. Blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing yoga pants and a fitted t-shirt. She looked young and vibrant and happy. Michael emerged behind her. He caught Amanda's hand, pulled her back, kissed her. Not a friendly peck, a real kiss, deep and intimate. The kind of kiss you give someone when you don't want to let them go. Then they pulled apart reluctantly, and Amanda got into her car, a white BMW that probably cost more than Victoria made in a year teaching high school literature. After Amanda drove away, Michael stood there for a moment, watching her go with a smile on his face. The kind of smile Victoria hadn't seen directed at her in months, maybe years. Then he got in his own car and drove away, presumably heading back to work, or maybe home, ready to continue the charade of being a remorseful husband trying to save his marriage. Victoria sat in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel, and felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Not pain anymore, not even anger, really. Just a crystalline certainty. She'd given Michael 4 days to come clean. 4 days to tell her the truth, to admit that Amanda was more than a friend, that he'd made bigger mistakes than an inappropriate gift. 4 days to show he valued their marriage enough to be honest. He'd chosen to keep lying. He'd looked Victoria in the eye each morning and maintained his story while continuing to see Amanda, while planning a future with her, while telling Amanda that Victoria was his ex-wife, causing drama. Victoria pulled out her phone and called Thomas Reed. "Mr. Reed, this is Victoria Hayes." I'm ready to move forward. I want to file for divorce as soon as possible. Are you certain? Once we file, there's no going back. Victoria thought about Michael kissing Amanda in the parking lot, thought about the lies stacked on top of lies, thought about the secret phone and the fake business trips and the thousands of dollars spent on another woman, thought about her 2 children who deserved better than to grow up watching their father treat their mother with such contempt disguised as devotion. I'm certain, she said. Draw up the papers. I want him served next week. I'll need a few days to prepare everything properly, but we can have him served by early next week. In the meantime, I need you to do something. Write down everything you remember about your marriage. The good times and the bad. His relationship with the children. His financial contributions. Any other issues beyond the affair. I need a complete picture. I can do that. And Victoria? Once we serve him, things are going to get difficult. He's going to be shocked, probably angry. Make sure you have support in place. Make sure you're emotionally prepared. I will be, Victoria promised. After hanging up, she drove to Diana's bookshop cafe. Her friend was behind the counter, making a latte for a customer. When she saw Victoria's face, she finished the drink quickly, handed it over, and flipped the door sign to "Back in 15 minutes." What happened? Diana asked, guiding Victoria to a corner table. Victoria told her everything. The messages she'd been monitoring, the financial records she'd copied, following Michael to Amanda's apartment, watching him kiss another woman while pretending to be working on their marriage. I'm filing for divorce, Victoria said. Next week. He's going to be served at work, probably. And when he comes home, I want all his things moved out. Diana reached across the table and squeezed Victoria's hand. What do you need from me? I need help telling the kids. I can't do that alone. And I need somewhere to go if things get ugly when he finds out. Just knowing I have a backup plan will help me stay strong. My spare room is yours anytime you need it. All of you, if necessary. And I'll absolutely be there when you talk to Caleb and Zoe. We'll do this together. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes for the first time in days. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'd do just fine, because you're one of the strongest people I know. But you don't have to do it alone. That's what friends are for. That evening, Victoria cooked dinner as usual. Michael came home around 7, looking tired but pleased with himself. He probably thought his afternoon visit with Amanda had been secret and safe. Probably thought he was successfully managing both relationships. How was work? Victoria asked, setting plates on the table. Busy. Lots of meetings. You know how it is. He smiled at her. That false smile of a man who thought he was getting away with something. Victoria smiled back. I do know how it is. In 5 days, Michael would know how it was too. He'd know what it felt like to have the ground shift beneath his feet, to realize that the person you thought you knew was actually several steps ahead of you. 5 days until Victoria took control of her own narrative. 5 days until Michael learned that mistakes have consequences. Victoria could wait 5 days. She'd already waited 16 years to discover who her husband really was. What was 5 more days? The weekend arrived with unseasonably warm weather for late April. Victoria woke Saturday morning to sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows and the sound of birds chirping outside. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a beautiful day. Now it felt like nature mocking her. Michael was already awake. She could hear him downstairs making coffee. He'd spent another night in the guest room, but the distance between them had started to feel routine rather than strange. Victoria wondered if he was relieved by the separate sleeping arrangements. It certainly made his late-night texting with Amanda easier. She checked the secret phone, which she now retrieved each morning from its hiding place in the car after Michael left. New messages from overnight. Amanda, I miss falling asleep with you. When do you think we can have a whole night together? Michael, soon, I promise. I'm working on it. Just need to get through this rough patch with the ex, and then things will be easier. Amanda, I hate calling her the ex. It makes it sound like you were together recently. You've been divorced for almost 2 years, right? Michael: Yeah, finalized 2 years ago, but we have kids together, so she's always going to be part of the picture. Just not in the way she wants to be. Victoria set the phone down carefully. 2 years divorced. The lie had grown more elaborate. It wasn't enough for Michael to say the divorce was recent. Now he'd created an entire timeline, a whole false history. Victoria wondered what other stories he'd told Amanda, what explanation he'd given for why his divorce was never mentioned on social media, why there were no public records of it, why he still wore a wedding ring at home. Actually, she realized with a start, checking Michael's nightstand where he left his wallet and keys, the wedding ring wasn't there. When had he stopped wearing it? She tried to remember seeing it on his hand recently and couldn't. He must have been taking it off before work, leaving it behind for his fake divorced persona. Victoria got dressed and went downstairs. Michael was at the kitchen table with his laptop open, supposedly reviewing sales reports. He looked up when she entered and attempted a smile. "Morning. Want some coffee?" "I'll get it," Victoria said, pouring herself a cup. "What are your plans today?" "I was hoping we could talk." "Actually talk. It's been almost a week, Vic. I need to know where we stand." Victoria sat across from him, cradling her coffee mug. This was it. She needed to buy just a few more days. Thomas Reed had said the divorce papers would be ready by Monday. Service would happen Tuesday. Just 3 more days of pretending. "I've been thinking a lot," she said carefully. "About us. About whether we can move past this." Michael leaned forward eagerly. And I think we need to try counseling. Real counseling. With a marriage therapist. It was a lie, of course. Victoria had no intention of going to counseling, but it would give her the time she needed while making Michael think she was open to reconciliation. Michael's face brightened. "Yes, absolutely. I'll find someone. Make an appointment for next week. Whatever you need." "I need you to be completely honest with me, Michael. If we're going to try to fix this, I need to know there are no more secrets. No more inappropriate relationships. Nothing you're hiding." She watched his face carefully as she said it, saw the micro-expression of guilt, there and gone in an instant, before he composed himself. "There's nothing. I promise. The thing with Amanda was a mistake in judgment. I see that now. I've already told her we need to maintain professional distance. I'm committed to making this work with you." Every word a lie, spoken with such sincerity that Victoria almost admired the performance. Almost. "Okay," she said softly. "Then we'll try." Michael reached across the table and took her hand. His touch made her skin crawl, but she forced herself not to pull away. "Thank you. Thank you for giving us another chance. I won't let you down. I promise." Victoria squeezed his hand briefly, then pulled away to drink her coffee. "The kids have been worried. They can sense something's wrong. We should try to have a normal weekend. For them." "Agreed. What if we take them to that new pizza place Zoe's been wanting to try? Make it a family day?" "That sounds good." They spent the day playing Happy Family. They took Caleb and Zoe to lunch, then to the park where Zoe played on the swings and Caleb shot baskets at the court. Michael was attentive, engaged, the perfect father. Victoria watched him laugh with their children and felt a deep sadness beneath her anger. This was what he was throwing away. These moments. This family. For what? For a relationship built on lies with a woman who didn't even know who he really was? That evening, after the kids were in bed, Michael approached Victoria as she was reading in the living room. "I was thinking," he said, sitting next to her on the couch. "Maybe tomorrow we could go look at that new art gallery downtown. Just the 2 of us. We haven't had a date in months." Victoria closed her book. "That's sweet, but I can't tomorrow. I have plans." "Oh?" Michael's tone was casual, but she sensed his attention sharpening. "What kind of plans?" "I'm meeting someone for coffee. A friend from grad school who's passing through Austin." It was a lie. Tomorrow, Victoria would be meeting with Thomas Reed one more time to go over the final details of the divorce filing. But Michael didn't need to know that. "Okay, well, maybe next weekend then." "Maybe." Victoria agreed noncommittally. Sunday morning, Victoria kissed the kids goodbye and told Michael she'd be back in a few hours. She drove to Thomas Reed's office, where he had the completed divorce petition ready for her to review. The document was thorough and damning. It laid out the grounds for fault divorce based on adultery. It detailed the evidence, the secret phone, the messages, the financial records showing thousands spent on the affair. It requested primary custody of the minor children, possession of the marital home, and a division of community property that favored Victoria 65-35. Once we file this tomorrow, the clerk will issue a citation, Thomas explained. A process server will deliver it to Michael, probably at his workplace. From that moment, there are automatic restraining orders in place. He can't take the children out of the county without permission. He can't sell or hide marital assets. He can't harass or threaten you. What should I expect from him? How will he react? Thomas steepled his fingers thoughtfully. Every person responds differently. Some are angry. Some are shocked, even if they knew it was coming. Some try to negotiate immediately. Based on what you've told me about Michael, about his need to maintain control and his ability to compartmentalize, I'd guess he'll be initially shocked, then quickly move to damage control mode. He'll probably try to paint himself as the victim, claim you're overreacting. I'm ready for that. Good. Because Victoria, I need to stress this. The next few weeks are going to be difficult. Friends will take sides. Family will have opinions. Michael will likely tell his version of events, and it won't be the truth. You need to stay strong in what you know to be real. I will, Victoria promised. Before leaving, she asked one more question. Should I tell him I filed before he's served? Give him a heads up? Thomas shook his head firmly. No. The element of surprise is important. It prevents him from taking actions to protect himself before you've legally protected your interests. And honestly, after months of him lying to you, you don't owe him the courtesy of a warning. Victoria nodded. He was right. She didn't owe Michael anything. That evening, she called Linda, Michael's mother. It was a call she'd been dreading, but knew was necessary. Linda had always been kind to Victoria, had welcomed her into the family from the beginning, but she was still Michael's mother. Victoria didn't know which side she'd take. Victoria, dear, how are you? Linda's warm voice came through the phone. Linda, I need to tell you something. Can you talk privately? Of course. Give me just a moment. Victoria heard movement, a door closing. Okay, I'm in the bedroom. Harold's watching television. What's wrong? You sound serious. Victoria took a deep breath. I'm filing for divorce from Michael. He's having an affair. The silence on the other end lasted several long seconds. Then, oh, Victoria. Oh, no. Are you certain? I'm completely certain. I have extensive proof. Messages, photos, financial records. It's been going on for months. Who is she? A woman he works with. Amanda Price. He told her he was divorced. She doesn't know I exist. Another long silence. Then Linda's voice, tight with controlled emotion. That boy! That stupid, stupid boy! Victoria, I am so sorry. I'm sorry he did this to you, to your family. You don't deserve this. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes at the kindness in Linda's voice. I wanted you to know before he's served with papers. That happens Tuesday. I didn't want you to be blindsided. You're going to get custody of the children? Primary custody, yes. He'll have visitation. Good. Those babies need their mother. And Linda, I want you to know, whatever happens between you and Michael, you're still family to me. You've been my daughter-in-law for 16 years. That doesn't just disappear because my son made terrible choices. Thank you, Victoria whispered. That means more than you know. Do you need anything? Financial help? A place to stay? No, I'm okay. I just wanted you to know the truth before Michael spins his version of events. After they hung up, Victoria sat for a long moment, staring at her phone. Linda's support had been unexpected, but deeply appreciated. At least she'd have one member of Michael's family on her side. Monday morning arrived with rain. The the weather finally matching Victoria's mood. She got the kids off to school, then called in sick to work. She couldn't focus on teaching literature when her entire life was about to implode. Instead, she spent the morning making copies of everything one last time. Every document, every photo, every piece of evidence, all organized into folders. One set for Thomas. One set for herself. One set secured in a safety deposit box she'd rented at the bank where she'd opened her new account. At noon, her phone rang. Thomas Reed. "We're filed. The clerk has issued the citation. The process server will deliver it to Michael's office tomorrow afternoon around 2. Are you prepared?" Victoria looked around her living room. She'd already packed 2 suitcases for herself and the kids, hidden in the back of her closet. She'd warned Diana to be available tomorrow evening. She'd transferred more money to her separate account. She'd done everything she could to prepare. "I'm ready," she said. "Remember, after he's served, you need to be somewhere safe when you tell him you want him to move out. Don't do it alone. Have your friend there. Have your phone ready to call police if necessary. I don't think Michael will become violent, but people can be unpredictable when their world falls apart. Diana will be with me." "Good. Call me tomorrow evening after everything settles. We'll discuss next steps." That afternoon, Victoria picked up the kids from school. She took them for ice cream, something spontaneous she rarely did on a Monday. She wanted to soak in their innocence, their uncomplicated joy at unexpected treats, before their world changed tomorrow. "Mom, are you okay?" Caleb asked as they sat in the ice cream shop. "You've been weird lately." Victoria looked at her son, nearly as tall as she was now, trying to grow into manhood while still being a child. She wanted to protect him from what was coming, wanted to shield both her children from the ugliness of adult betrayal. But she couldn't. The best she could do was be honest and be there. "I'm going through some things, sweetie, but I'm okay. And I want you to know, whatever happens, your dad and I both love you and Zoe very much. Are you getting divorced?" Caleb's voice was quiet, but his eyes were sharp, too perceptive. Victoria hesitated. She'd planned to wait until after Michael was served, until after she'd talked to him, to tell the children. But Caleb deserved honesty. "We're having serious problems, yes, but no matter what happens, you and your sister are loved. That will never change." Caleb looked down at his melting ice cream. "Is it because of Dad's girlfriend?" Victoria's heart stopped. "What? I'm not stupid, Mom. I've heard him on the phone late at night, talking to someone, saying things he shouldn't say if he's married to you. And he hasn't been wearing his wedding ring. I noticed." Victoria reached across the table and took her son's hand. 14. Still a child, but old enough to see the cracks in his parents' marriage. Old enough to be hurt by his father's betrayal. Your dad made some bad choices. Adult choices that have consequences, but none of this is your fault, okay? Not yours, not Zoe's. This is between your dad and me. But we're going to be affected too, aren't we? If you get divorced, we'll have to go back and forth between houses. Have 2 of everything. Spend holidays apart. Probably, Victoria admitted. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you have to go through this. But Caleb, staying together in a broken marriage just for appearances wouldn't be healthy for any of us. Sometimes the right thing is also the hard thing. Caleb nodded slowly, processing this information with a maturity that broke Victoria's heart. "Okay, but Mom, whatever you decide, I'm on your side." Victoria squeezed his hand, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. That night, Michael came home late again. He barely looked at Victoria, muttering something about a difficult client before retreating to the guest room. Victoria lay awake in her bed, listening to the house settle around her, knowing this was the last night everything would look normal, even if it hadn't been normal for months. Tomorrow, Michael would be served with divorce papers at work. Tomorrow, he'd come home to find Victoria and Diana waiting for him. Tomorrow, she'd tell him to leave. Tomorrow, their marriage would officially end. Not with the quiet death it had been dying for months, but with the sharp finality of legal papers and unavoidable truth. Victoria didn't sleep that night. She lay in the darkness, reviewing every detail of her plan. At 2 in the morning, she got up and checked the secret phone one last time. One new message from Michael to Amanda, sent at 1:45. Michael, I think I convinced her to try counseling. Just need to go through the motions for a few weeks. Then I can say it's not working and file for divorce. By summer, we'll be together for real. Amanda, I hate that you have to wait. I hate that you have to pretend. But I understand. Just remember, I'm here waiting for you. Michael, not much longer now, I promise. Soon you'll be the only woman in my life. Victoria read the messages twice, then deleted the text thread from her phone that contained the screenshots she'd been saving. She didn't need them anymore. She had copies of everything secured elsewhere. And tomorrow, Michael would learn that his timeline had just collapsed. He thought he had months to carefully orchestrate his exit from the marriage, to manipulate Victoria into thinking counseling had failed, to position himself as the reasonable one, while painting her as difficult or unstable. Instead, he had hours. Less than 12 hours before his comfortable lies shattered. Victoria put the phone away and finally managed to fall into a restless sleep just before dawn. When her alarm went off at 6:30, she got up mechanically, going through her morning routine on autopilot. She made breakfast for the kids. She helped Zoe find her homework. She reminded Caleb about his baseball practice. She moved through the motions of normal life one last time. Michael left for work at 7:45, kissing the top of Victoria's head absently. "Have a good day," he said. "You too," Victoria replied, and watched him walk out the door, completely unaware that in 6 hours and 15 minutes, his entire world would detonate. After the kids left for school, Victoria texted Diana, "Today's the day. Can you be at my house at 5? Diana's response came immediately. "I'll be there. You've got this." Then Victoria sat at her kitchen table, in the house she'd lived in for the past 8 years, and waited for 2 o'clock to arrive. At exactly 2:15, her phone buzzed with a text from Thomas Reed. "Served successfully. He's been officially notified. Prepare yourself." Victoria took a deep breath, steadying herself. This was it. No going back now. She'd set events in motion that couldn't be stopped. She spent the afternoon cleaning the house, needing something physical to do with her nervous energy. She vacuumed, she dusted, she organized closets, anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from spiraling into anxiety about the confrontation to come. At 4:45, Diana arrived, letting herself in with the spare key Victoria had given her years ago. She found Victoria in the kitchen, staring at the coffee maker as if it held answers to questions she hadn't asked. "Hey," Diana said softly, pulling Victoria into a hug. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know. I'm numb, I think." "Is that normal?" "Completely normal. You're about to have one of the hardest conversations of your life. Numb is a survival mechanism." They sat at the kitchen table, and Diana made tea neither of them drank. At 5:20, they heard a car in the driveway. Victoria's whole body tensed. "Remember," Diana said quietly, "you are strong. You are in control. And I'm right here." Victoria nodded, standing up. Her legs felt shaky but held her weight. She walked to the front door and opened it just as Michael reached the porch. His face was pale, his tie loosened, and he held a manila envelope in one hand. The divorce petition. His eyes met Victoria's, and she saw confusion, anger, fear all cycling across his expression. "What the hell is this?" His voice was tight, controlled, but Victoria heard the rage underneath. "That," Victoria said calmly, "is the truth. Every lie you've told me, every moment you've spent with Amanda, every dollar you've spent on her, all of it documented and filed with the court." Michael's face went from pale to red. "You had me served at work. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? My colleagues saw. My boss saw. Everyone knows now." "Good," Victoria said. "Let them know. Let everyone know exactly what you've been doing." "Victoria, I can explain." "No, you can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. Come inside. We need to talk, and you need to pack your things." She turned and walked into the house, leaving Michael standing on the porch, the divorce petition clutched in his hand, his carefully constructed double life collapsing around him like a house of cards in a hurricane. Michael followed Victoria inside, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood floor. Diana stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, a silent sentinel. Michael stopped when he saw her, his expression shifting from anger to something more guarded. "Diana, of course you're here." "Someone needs to witness this," Diana said flatly. "Someone needs to make sure Victoria's safe." "Safe? I'm not going to hurt her." "Jesus, what do you think I am?" "A liar," Diana said simply. "A cheater. Someone who's been living a double life for months. So forgive me if I don't trust you to behave reasonably right now." Michael's jaw clenched, but he didn't respond. Instead, he turned to Victoria. "Can we talk privately, please?" "No," Victoria said. "Diana stays. Everything you need to say, you can say in front of her. Actually, I'd prefer a witness to whatever excuses you're about to make." Michael set the manila envelope on the coffee table and sat heavily on the couch. He looked defeated already, shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him as quickly as it had appeared. Victoria remained standing, needing the physical advantage of height, of looking down at him while he looked up at her. "How long have you known?" Michael asked quietly. "About Amanda? Since my birthday? Since you gave me her necklace with her card attached?" Michael's eyes widened. "That was over a week ago." "You've known for over a week, and you didn't say anything? You mean like how you've known about Amanda for 6 months and didn't say anything?" Victoria's voice was sharp. "Don't talk to me about honesty, Michael. You lost that right the first time you lied to me about where you were going. I tried to tell you. You tried to tell me it was a mistake with a coworker, that nothing happened, that you'd pulled back and set boundaries. You looked me in the eye every single day this past week and lied, while I knew the truth, while I was reading your messages to her, while I was watching you kiss her in the parking lot of her apartment." Michael went very still. "You followed me." "I did. On Thursday. I watched you go into her building. I watched you come out an hour later and kiss her goodbye. I watched you smile at her the way you used to smile at me. So don't you dare sit there and tell me you tried to be honest. You've been lying from the beginning, and you never stopped." Michael ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Victoria had once found endearing and now just found pathetic. Okay, you're right. I lied. I've been seeing Amanda. But, Victoria, you have to understand. This wasn't something I planned. It just happened." "Nothing just happens, Michael. You made choices, hundreds of them. Every text message, every hotel room, every lie about working late. Those were choices." "I was lonely," Michael said, and his voice cracked. "You were always so focused on work, on the kids, on everything except me. I felt invisible in my own marriage. And then I met Amanda, and she actually saw me. She listened when I talked. She was interested in what I had to say. She made me feel important again." Victoria felt a surge of anger so intense it made her dizzy. "So this is my fault? Because I work? Because I take care of our children? Because I wasn't paying enough attention to you? No, that's not what I'm saying. That's exactly what you're saying. You're trying to blame your affair on me not being attentive enough. You're trying to make yourself the victim here." Diana stepped forward from her position in the doorway. "Michael, let me save you some time. Nothing you say right now is going to change what's happening. Victoria has filed for divorce. You've been served. The legal process is in motion. The only thing you can control at this point is how you behave going forward. I suggest you stop trying to justify yourself and start accepting responsibility." Michael looked at Diana with undisguised dislike. "This is between me and my wife. You don't get a say. She stopped being just your wife the moment you started sleeping with someone else," Diana shot back. "Now she's a woman protecting herself from someone who betrayed her. And I'm here to make sure she stays protected." Victoria held up her hand. "Stop, both of you. Michael, Diana's right. Nothing you say is going to change my mind, but there are things we need to discuss. Practical things." Michael looked up at her, and for the first time, she saw real fear in his eyes. "The kids. The petition says you want primary custody." "I do. You can have them alternating weekends and one evening a week for dinner. Standard visitation." "No, no way. They're my children too. I want joint custody. 50-50. You should have thought about that before you brought your mistress into their lives," Victoria said coldly. Michael's face went pale. "What are you talking about? I never—" "Don't lie to me anymore, Michael. I've seen the photos on your secret phone. You've had Amanda around Caleb and Zoe multiple times. That trip to Schlitterbahn Water Park last month, when you said it was a Father-Kids Day? Amanda was there. I saw the photos. You introduced her to our children as your friend. You involved them in your affair. I didn't think—" "Exactly. You didn't think. You didn't think about how exposing our children to your mistress might affect them. You didn't think about how they might feel when they eventually found out. You only thought about yourself and what you wanted." Michael's voice rose. "You're going to poison them against me. You're going to make them hate me." "I won't have to do anything," Victoria said. "Caleb already knows. He's 14, Michael. He's not stupid. He heard you on the phone with her. He noticed you stopped wearing your wedding ring. He figured it out on his own. And when I tell them the truth, in age-appropriate ways, they'll make their own judgments about your choices." "You're going to tell them I cheated?" Michael stood up abruptly, his voice incredulous. "I'm going to tell them that sometimes adults make mistakes that hurt the people they love. I'm going to tell them that trust is important in relationships and that their father broke that trust. I'm not going to lie to protect your image, Michael. They deserve honesty, even if you never gave me the same courtesy." Michael began pacing the living room, agitation radiating from every movement. "This is insane. We can't get divorced. What about the house? What about our finances? You can't just destroy 16 years of marriage because I made one mistake." "One mistake?" Victoria's voice was dangerously quiet. "Let me show you what one mistake looks like." She walked to the dining room table where she'd laid out folders earlier, organized and labeled. She picked them up and brought them to the coffee table, dropping them in front of Michael with deliberate precision. Folder 1. Financial records. $4,350 spent on Amanda over the past 6 months. Hotels, restaurants, jewelry, gifts, clothing, all from our joint accounts. Money that should have gone to our children's college funds, to home repairs, to our family. You spent it on your mistress." She dropped another folder. Folder 2. Text messages. 847 messages between you and Amanda. Declarations of love. Plans for your future together. Complaints about me. That's not one mistake, Michael. That's 847 deliberate choices to betray me. Another folder. Folder 3. Location data. Every time you said you were working late or traveling for business, but you were actually at Amanda's apartment. 16 times in the past 3 months alone. 16 times you lied about where you were and who you were with. She dropped the last folder. Folder 4. The lies you told Amanda. You told her you were divorced. You told her your ex-wife was difficult, that she was making the custody arrangement complicated. You created an entire false history so you could pursue a relationship with her without telling her the truth. You didn't just betray me, Michael. You betrayed her too. She thinks she's dating a divorced man. She has no idea she's the other woman in an active marriage. Michael stared at the folders, his face ashen. How did you get all this? The secret phone you keep in your car. The one you thought I didn't know about. I've been reading every message. I've been tracking every lie. I've documented everything. That's a violation of privacy. You lost the right to privacy when you started using that phone to conduct an affair, Victoria said sharply. And before you think about arguing this in court, My attorney assures me that everything I gathered is admissible. Texas is a one-party consent state. I'm allowed to access phones and accounts we jointly own. The car is in both our names. The bank accounts are joint. Everything I found legally. Michael sat back down slowly, staring at the folders like they were weapons pointed at his chest. What do you want from me? I want you to leave. Tonight. Pack enough clothes for a week. My attorney will arrange a time for you to come back and get the rest of your things. Where am I supposed to go? I truly don't care. Hotel, friend's place, Amanda's apartment, though I suspect she won't want you there once she finds out the truth. Victoria paused, which brings me to my next point. You're going to call her, right now, in front of me, and you're going to tell her you're married. Michael's head snapped up. What? No. Why would you want that? Because she deserves to know the truth. Because I'm not going to let you keep lying to her. And because I want her to know exactly what kind of man you are before you try to run back to her after this divorce is over. Victoria, please, do it, now, or I will call her myself, and I guarantee my version of events will be less flattering to you. Michael pulled out his phone with shaking hands. He stared at the screen for a long moment before finally selecting Amanda's contact. He put the phone on speaker, setting it on the coffee table. It rang 3 times before she answered. Hey, babe. I wasn't expecting to hear from you this early. How was your day? Amanda's voice was bright, cheerful, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Michael closed his eyes. Amanda, I need to tell you something. Okay? Her tone shifted, picking up on his serious demeanor. What's wrong? I haven't been completely honest with you. About my situation. About my past. Michael, you're scaring me. What are you talking about? I'm not divorced. I'm still married. I've been married this whole time. My wife just filed for divorce today. She found out about us. The silence on the other end was deafening. Victoria could almost feel Amanda's shock radiating through the phone line. What? Amanda's voice was small, confused. But you said... You told me you'd been divorced for 2 years. You said your ex-wife was... She stopped. Oh my God. She's not your ex-wife. She's your wife. Your actual current wife. I'm sorry. I should have told you from the beginning. I didn't know how long. Amanda's voice was getting louder, anger replacing shock. How long have you been lying to me? From the start. From January. January. Amanda's voice broke. 6 months. I've been with you for 6 months, and you've been married the entire time. Oh my God. I'm the other woman. I'm someone's mistress. You turned me into that person. Amanda? No, it's not like that. My marriage was already dead. Victoria and we haven't been happy in years. Does she know that? Amanda demanded. Does your wife know that your marriage was dead? Because it sounds to me like she just found out about me a week ago. It sounds to me like she thought she was in a real marriage until she discovered you were lying to her, too. It's complicated. No, it's actually very simple. You're a liar. You lied to me. You lied to her. You probably lie to everyone because that's what you do. Amanda's voice was thick with tears now. I asked you multiple times if you were being honest with me, if there was anything I should know, and every single time, you looked me in the eye and lied. I love you, Michael said desperately. That wasn't a lie. My feelings for you are real. Your feelings are built on a foundation of lies, which makes them worthless. Don't call me again. Don't text me. Don't come to my apartment. We're done. And Michael? I hope your wife takes everything from you in the divorce. You deserve it. The line went dead. Michael stared at the phone, his face a mask of devastation. Victoria felt a pang of something, not quite sympathy, but an acknowledgement of his pain. Then she remembered the past 6 months of lies, and the feeling evaporated. Well, Diana said into the silence, that went about as expected. Michael looked up at Victoria, his eyes red-rimmed. Are you happy now? You destroyed my relationship with Amanda. You're destroying our marriage. You're going to destroy my relationship with my kids? Is this what you wanted? I didn't destroy anything, Victoria said calmly. You did that yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. Now, go pack your things. You have 1 hour. An hour? Victoria? I need more time than that. You've had 6 months to plan for this, even if you didn't know it. 1 hour is generous. Diana and I will be down here waiting. Don't try to take anything that isn't yours. Michael stood slowly, looking around the living room like he was seeing it for the first time, or the last time. Then he trudged upstairs without another word. They heard doors opening and closing, drawers sliding, the sounds of someone dismantling their life, one item at a time. Diana moved to sit next to Victoria on the couch. You okay? I don't know. I thought I'd feel something. Satisfaction, maybe. Or vindication. But I just feel tired. That's normal. You've been running on adrenaline and determination for over a week. Now that the confrontation is over, you're going to crash a little. Is it wrong that part of me feels bad for him, even after everything? It's not wrong. It's human. You loved him for 16 years. That doesn't just disappear overnight because he betrayed you. But Victoria, feeling sorry for him doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. He did this, not you. 45 minutes later, Michael came back downstairs carrying 2 large duffel bags and a garment bag. His eyes were red and puffy. He'd been crying. Victoria felt that pang again, but pushed it away. He'd cried, probably, in Amanda's arms while complaining about his difficult wife. His tears didn't move her anymore. I packed what I need for now, he said. When can I come back for the rest? My attorney will contact you about that. Probably next week. Michael nodded slowly. He looked at Victoria for a long moment, like he was trying to memorize her face. I really did love you. I know you don't believe me now, but it's true. I loved you, and I screwed it all up. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I believe you loved me in your own way, Victoria said quietly. I just don't think your love was ever as big as your selfishness. Goodbye, Michael. He stood there for another moment, like he wanted to say more, to make one last plea. Then his shoulders sagged and he walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. Tell the kids I love them. Tell them I'll call tomorrow. I will. Then he was gone. The door closed behind him with a soft click that seemed impossibly loud in the quiet house. Victoria heard his car start, heard it pull out of the driveway, heard the sound fade as he drove away from the home they'd shared for 8 years, away from the life they'd built together. Diana pulled Victoria into a hug. You did it. It's over. It's not over, Victoria said against her friend's shoulder. This is just the beginning. There's still the divorce proceedings, custody arrangements, dividing assets, telling the kids the full truth, rebuilding my life. It's going to take months. But the hardest part is done. You stood up for yourself. You took control. Everything else is just logistics. They sat on the couch together in the quiet house. Victoria looked around at her living room, noticing things she'd never paid attention to before. The way the evening light came through the windows, the small scuff marks on the wall where Caleb had run his toy cars when he was 4, the family photos that would need to be taken down and replaced with something else. I need to call the kids, Victoria said. They're at my parents' house. I sent them there after school so they wouldn't be here for the confrontation. I need to tell them their father moved out. Do you want me to stay while you do that? Please, Victoria called her mother. Can you bring the kids home? It's done. Michael's gone. How are you holding up, sweetheart? I'm okay, Mom. Just bring them home. They need to be here, in their own house, even if it's different now. 30 minutes later, her parents' car pulled into the driveway. Caleb and Zoe got out, both looking worried. They'd known something big was happening today, even if they didn't know exactly what. Victoria met them at the door, pulling both children into a hug. Hey guys, come on in. We need to talk. They all sat in the living room, Diana standing quietly in the background, her parents in the kitchen giving them privacy, but close enough if needed. Caleb looked at the empty spot where Michael usually sat and his expression darkened. "Dad's gone, isn't he?" "Yes," Victoria said gently. "Your dad moved out today. He's going to be staying somewhere else for a while. Are you getting divorced?" Zoe's voice was small, scared. "We are. I filed for divorce, and your dad is going to sign the papers. I'm sorry, baby. I know this isn't what you wanted." "Is it because of his girlfriend?" Caleb asked bluntly. Zoe's head whipped around to stare at her brother. "What girlfriend?" Victoria took a deep breath. This was the conversation she'd been dreading, but it needed to happen. The kids deserved the truth, age-appropriate, but honest. "Your dad made some choices that hurt our marriage very badly. He started a relationship with someone else while he was still married to me. That's called cheating, and it's a serious breach of trust. When trust is broken that completely, sometimes a marriage can't be fixed." "Did you try to fix it?" Zoe asked, tears streaming down her face. "I thought about it, but your dad wasn't honest with me, even when I gave him chances to come clean. And I realized that staying in a marriage where I couldn't trust my partner wasn't healthy for me or for you kids." Caleb's voice was hard. "I don't want to see him. I don't want to go to his new place or spend weekends with him. You're going to have to, sweetheart. He's still your father. He still loves you both very much. What he did to me, the way he broke my trust, that was between him and me. He's still your dad, but he lied to you," Caleb insisted. "For months. How are we supposed to trust him? That's something you're going to have to work out with him. And it's okay to be angry. It's okay to have complicated feelings about this. But Caleb, Zoe, I need you both to understand something." Victoria took both their hands. "This is not your fault. Nothing either of you did cause this. This was your father's choice, and my response to that choice. And whatever happens, both your dad and I love you more than anything in the world." They talked for another hour, answering questions, addressing fears, providing reassurance where they could. When the kids finally went upstairs to their rooms, both emotionally exhausted, Victoria collapsed back onto the couch. Her mother came in from the kitchen. "You did well, honey. Those are hard conversations to have. They're going to have so many more questions as this sinks in. I don't know if I have all the answers. Nobody does. You just take it one day at a time." After her parents left, after Diana made sure Victoria ate something and promised to check in tomorrow, after the house was finally quiet and dark, Victoria went upstairs to her bedroom. The bed looked huge and empty without Michael on the other side. He lay down, still fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. A text from Thomas Reed. "Heard it went as planned. Good work. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we start the real work of building your new life." Victoria set the phone aside and closed her eyes. Building a new life. That's what came next. Not mourning the old one, not getting lost in bitterness or regret, but actively constructing something better from the pieces that remained. She thought about Michael, probably in some hotel room, realizing the full extent of what he'd lost. She thought about Amanda, dealing with the discovery that her relationship had been built on lies. She thought about her children upstairs, trying to process a reality that had shifted beneath their feet. And she thought about herself, Victoria Hayes, 40 years old, soon to be divorced, mother of 2, starting over. It was terrifying. It was exhausting. It was necessary. And tomorrow, she would wake up and take the next step, and the next, and the next, until one day she'd wake up and realize she'd built something real, something honest, something entirely her own. But tonight, she let herself feel the weight of everything that had happened. Let herself grieve for the marriage she'd thought she had, even if it had been an illusion. Tomorrow would be for moving forward. Tonight was for letting go. The first month after Michael moved out was the hardest. Victoria went through the motions of her life like she was watching herself from outside her body. She taught her classes, graded papers, attended parent-teacher conferences. She made dinners, helped with homework, drove Caleb to baseball practice, and Zoe to dance class. She smiled when she was supposed to smile, laughed when something was funny, responded appropriately to questions and comments. But inside, she felt hollow. The house was too quiet without Michael's presence, even though that presence had become a lie. She found herself reaching for her phone to text him something funny the kids said. Then, remembering. She'd set the table for 4 people out of habit, then have to put one place setting away. She'd wake up at night and reach across the bed, finding only empty space. Grief, she discovered, didn't care if the thing you were mourning was real or not. She grieved for the marriage she'd thought she had, for the man she'd believed Michael to be, for the future she'd imagined growing old together. The fact that it had all been an illusion didn't make the loss hurt any less. Diana came over most evenings, bringing takeout, and refusing to let Victoria wallow. "You're allowed to be sad," she'd said. "You're allowed to grieve, but you're not allowed to get lost in it. You've got 2 kids who need you present, not just physically here." She was right. Caleb and Zoe were struggling with the new reality. Caleb had become sullen and withdrawn, his anger at Michael manifesting as teenage moodiness that tried Victoria's patience. Zoe cried easily, asking repeatedly when their family would be back together, not understanding that what they'd had was already broken. She just hadn't known it. Michael called every evening to talk to the kids. The conversations were stilted, painful. Zoe would talk to him, but her voice was sad. Caleb often refused to come to the phone, making Victoria mediate between father and son. She tried to remain neutral, to not poison the relationship, but it was exhausting being Switzerland when part of her wanted to scream at Michael for what he'd done to their children. The first weekend visitation was a disaster. Zoe came home crying because Michael's new apartment was small and unfamiliar and didn't have her stuffed animal collection. Caleb came home angry, having barely spoken to Michael the entire weekend. When Victoria asked what happened, Caleb said Michael had tried to explain his side of things, to make Victoria sound like she'd been difficult, like the divorce was mutual. Victoria had called Michael immediately. "Don't you dare try to rewrite history with our children. Don't you dare make me the villain in your story. You cheated. You lied. Those are facts. If you try to manipulate them into thinking otherwise, I will make sure the judge knows." Michael had been quiet for a long moment. "You're right. I'm sorry. I won't do it again." And to his credit, he didn't. Whatever else Michael was, he did love his children. He just hadn't loved them enough to consider them before he'd blown up their family. The divorce proceedings moved forward with mechanical efficiency. Thomas Reed was a shark in lawyer's clothing, negotiating aggressively on Victoria's behalf. Michael's attorney tried to push back, arguing for 50-50 custody and 50-50 asset division. But the evidence Victoria had compiled was overwhelming. In the end, Michael agreed to the terms rather than face a trial where every detail of his affair would become public record. Victoria got primary custody, the house, and 65% of their marital assets. Michael got alternating weekend visitation, Wednesday evening dinners with the kids, and the realization that betrayal had consequences that extended far beyond the end of a marriage. The house sold quickly. Victoria had decided she couldn't stay there, couldn't keep living in a space so filled with memories of a life that had been a lie. She found a smaller place across town, a cozy 3-bedroom with a backyard for the kids and enough distance from the old neighborhood that she didn't run into mutual friends who didn't know which side to take. Moving was cathartic. Victoria purged ruthlessly, getting rid of anything that reminded her of Michael. Wedding photos went into a box for the kids when they were older. Gifts he'd given her over the years went to charity. She repainted every room in the new house in colors Michael would have hated, bright and bold, and unapologetically hers. 3 months after filing for divorce, Victoria started seeing Dr. Emily Carter, a therapist who specialized in divorce recovery. At first, she'd resisted the idea. She was handling things fine, she told herself. She was functioning, taking care of her kids, managing her life. But Diana had gently pointed out that functioning wasn't the same as healing. Dr. Carter's office was peaceful, decorated in soft blues and grays, with comfortable chairs and a white noise machine that blocked out the sounds of the world beyond those walls. Their first session, Victoria had sat rigidly in her chair, arms crossed, defensive. "I don't know what you want me to say. My husband cheated. I found out. I divorced him. That's the whole story." Dr. Carter had smiled gently. "That's the plot. But Victoria, we're not here to talk about the plot. We're here to talk about how you feel about the plot, what it's done to you, how you make sense of it." Over the following months, through weekly sessions that Victoria initially resented but grew to value, she began to unpack everything. The way Michael's betrayal had shattered her trust, not just in him, but in her own judgment. The guilt she felt about exposing her children to the divorce, the anger that still bubbled up unexpectedly, making her snap at minor inconveniences. The fear that she'd never be able to trust anyone again. "You're not broken," Dr. Carter told her one afternoon, 6 months after the divorce filing. "You're healing. And healing isn't linear. You're going to have good days and bad days. Days where you feel strong and days where you feel shattered. That's normal. That's human." "How long until I stop feeling like this?" Victoria had asked. "That's different for everyone. But Victoria, you need to understand something. The goal isn't to go back to who you were before. That person trusted too easily, ignored red flags because she wanted to believe in her marriage. The goal is to become someone new, someone who's learned from this pain, someone who's stronger and wiser because of what she survived." Those words stayed with Victoria as summer gave way to fall. The kids had settled into their new routine, the initial trauma of the divorce fading into a new normal that was different but manageable. Caleb had started talking to Michael again, their relationship tentative but present. Zoe had stopped asking when their family would be back together, accepting that this was their family now, just in a different configuration. Victoria threw herself into her work with renewed energy. She'd taken on additional responsibilities at the school, leading the English department and mentoring new teachers. She'd also started writing again, something she'd abandoned years ago when life had gotten too busy. Late at night, after the kids were asleep, she'd sit at her kitchen table and pour her experiences onto the page, not for publication, just for herself, a way to process, to make meaning from chaos. At work, she noticed someone noticing her. Gabriel Costa taught history in the classroom next to hers. They'd been colleagues for 3 years, but had never been more than friendly. He was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of person who listened more than he spoke. Victoria knew he was a widower, that his wife had died of cancer 3 years ago, that he had no children. He started stopping by her classroom during her free period, bringing her coffee and engaging in discussions about books and teaching and the challenges of helping teenagers navigate their complex inner lives. Victoria found herself looking forward to those conversations, to the easy way they talked to each other, to how Gabriel never tried to fix her or save her, just listened when she needed to talk, and gave her space when she needed quiet. "He likes you," Diana said one evening, when Victoria mentioned Gabriel for the 3rd time in one conversation. "And I think you like him too." "I'm not ready for that," Victoria protested. "I just got divorced. I can't even think about dating. I'm not saying you should marry the man tomorrow. I'm just saying, when you're ready, he seems like he'd be worth considering. Someone who knows loss. Someone who understands that healing takes time. Someone who won't rush you or pressure you." Victoria thought about that. She thought about Gabriel's kind eyes and the way he never made her feel like she needed to be anything other than exactly who she was in that moment. Broken, or healing, or angry, or sad, or slowly becoming okay again. One Friday afternoon in November, 7 months after Michael had moved out, Gabriel asked Victoria if she'd like to get coffee after school. "Not a date," he clarified quickly. "Just coffee with a colleague." Victoria almost said no, then surprised herself by saying yes. They went to a cafe downtown, ordered lattes, and talked for 2 hours about everything except divorce and death and pain. They talked about books they'd loved as children, about places they wanted to travel, about the strange satisfaction of helping a struggling student finally understand a difficult concept. It was easy and comfortable, and Victoria realized, with something like wonder, that she was genuinely happy in that moment. Not performing happiness, not pretending, actually feeling it. "Can I be honest about something?" Gabriel said as they were leaving. "Of course. I've wanted to ask you to coffee for months, but I was waiting until you looked ready, until you didn't look like you were barely holding yourself together anymore. I think you're one of the strongest people I know, Victoria. The way you've handled everything, the way you've protected your kids while rebuilding your own life, it's remarkable." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "I don't feel strong most days. I feel like I'm faking it until I make it." "That's what strength is," Gabriel said gently. "Showing up even when it's hard. Choosing to keep going even when you're not sure you can. That's not faking it. That's courage." They started having coffee every Friday after school. It wasn't dating, they both agreed. It was just two colleagues who'd become friends, spending time together. But as fall turned to winter, as the days grew shorter and colder, Victoria felt something shifting inside her. A thawing of the frozen places. A tentative willingness to consider that maybe, someday, she could trust someone again. The divorce was finalized in December, 8 months after Victoria had filed. She sat in the courtroom with Thomas Reed while the judge reviewed the final settlement and granted the dissolution of her marriage to Michael Hayes. Just like that. 16 years ended with a gavel strike and legal paperwork. She'd thought she'd feel something profound in that moment. Relief, or sadness, or vindication. Instead, she felt nothing. Just a quiet acknowledgement that a chapter had closed. The marriage was officially over. Now she could truly move forward. Michael had been in the courtroom too, on the opposite side with his attorney. They didn't speak, didn't make eye contact. They were strangers now, connected only by the children they shared. After the judge finished, Victoria gathered her things and walked out without looking back. In the hallway, Thomas Reed shook her hand. "You did good work here, Victoria. You protected yourself and your children. You should be proud." "I am," she said, and realized it was true. Christmas was different, but not bad. The kids spent Christmas Eve with Victoria and Christmas morning with Michael. Victoria had worried the split holiday would be painful, but instead, she found herself enjoying the quiet Christmas Eve. Just her and Caleb and Zoe, making cookies and watching old movies, and building their own traditions that had nothing to do with Michael. Gabriel had invited her to a New Year's Eve party at a colleague's house. Victoria had hesitated, then accepted. She bought a new dress, something bright and bold that the old Victoria never would have worn. She did her hair and makeup with care, not to impress anyone else, but because she wanted to feel beautiful for herself. At the party, Gabriel stayed close, but not smothering, introducing her to friends, including her in conversations. At midnight, when everyone was kissing and hugging and celebrating the new year, he'd asked quietly if she'd like to go outside where it was quieter. They stood on the back deck, watching fireworks in the distance, the sounds of celebration muffled by the winter air. "Can I tell you something?" Victoria said. "Anything. A year ago, I thought my life was over. When I found out about Michael's affair, when I realized my entire marriage had been a lie, I couldn't see how I'd survive it. But I did survive it. And somewhere along the way, I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was actually living again, building something new. And it's scary and uncertain and nothing like what I'd planned, but it's real. It's mine. And I think I'm okay with that." Gabriel smiled. "I think you're more than okay." "I'm not ready," Victoria said, "for a relationship, for trusting someone that way again. I want to be honest about that. I know. And that's fine. I'm not going anywhere. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll still be here. And if you're never ready, I'll still be your friend. No pressure, no expectations." Victoria looked at this man who'd appeared in her life at exactly the right time, who understood that healing couldn't be rushed, who was patient enough to wait without demanding. "Thank you," she said, "for being exactly who you are." They stood together in the cold December night, watching the city light up with fireworks, and Victoria felt something she hadn't felt in over a year: hope. The months that followed were full of small miracles disguised as ordinary moments. Caleb made the varsity baseball team and called Victoria from school, so excited he could barely get the words out. Zoe performed a solo in her dance recital, and Victoria watched her daughter's confidence bloom on stage. Victoria got promoted to department chair at school, a recognition of her hard work and leadership, and slowly, carefully, she began to open her heart to Gabriel. They went on actual dates, not just coffee between colleagues, dinner and movies and walks through the park. They talked for hours about their pasts and their presents and the futures they might want. Gabriel told her about his wife, about watching her die slowly, about the guilt he'd felt when he'd realized he was ready to move on. Victoria told him about the betrayal, about the detective work of uncovering Michael's lies, about the fear that she'd never be able to trust anyone again. "Trust isn't something you give all at once," Gabriel said one evening as they sat on Victoria's back porch, watching the kids play in the yard. "It's something you build slowly, piece by piece, with someone who proves they're worthy of it. I don't expect you to trust me immediately. I just hope to earn it over time." And he did earn it, through consistency and honesty, and showing up exactly when he said he would, through never making promises he couldn't keep, and never asking for more than Victoria was ready to give, through being patient with her bad days and celebrating her good ones. 6 months into dating Gabriel, Victoria realized she was genuinely happy. Not the forced happiness of someone trying to convince herself everything was fine. Not the desperate happiness of someone clinging to any positive feeling. Real, deep, solid happiness that came from knowing herself, from building a life that was authentically hers, from choosing to trust again despite the risk. Caleb and Zoe met Gabriel officially in the spring, over a year after the divorce. Victoria had been nervous, worried about how they'd react, about whether they'd feel like she was trying to replace their father. But Gabriel was gentle with them, asking about their interests, listening to their stories, never trying to be anything other than their mother's friend who cared about all of them. "I like him," Caleb said, after Gabriel left that first evening. "He's not trying too hard, you know. He just seems like a good person." "He makes you smile, Mom," Zoe added. "Like, really smile. Not the smile you do when you're pretending to be okay." Victoria pulled both her children into a hug, overwhelmed with love for these two resilient humans who'd weathered their parents' divorce and come through it stronger. "You two are the best things that ever happened to me. You know that, right?" "We know, Mom," Caleb said, rolling his eyes but hugging her back. Michael remained a presence in their lives, but a distant one. He'd moved in with a new girlfriend, not Amanda, someone else he'd met online. He showed up for his scheduled visitations, paid his child support on time, attended the kids' important events, but the easy closeness he'd once had with Caleb and Zoe had been damaged, would probably never fully recover. They were polite to him, dutiful, but the trust was gone. One evening in early summer, almost a year and a half after the divorce, Victoria stood in her kitchen making dinner while Caleb did homework at the table, and Zoe drew pictures on the floor. Gabriel was coming over later. This was her life now, different from what she'd planned, but good, real, honest. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Curious, she opened it. "This is Amanda Price. I know this is strange, but I wanted to reach out. I owe you an apology. I had no idea Michael was married. I believed his lies completely. When I found out the truth, I was devastated. Not just because of losing him, but because I'd unknowingly hurt you and your children. I'm so sorry. I hope you and your family are doing well. You deserved so much better than what he put you through." Victoria read the message twice, processing. Then she typed a response. Thank you for reaching out. I believe you didn't know. Michael lied to both of us. I hope you've found happiness and that you're more careful about trusting the next person. We're all doing well. The best revenge is living well. And I'm doing exactly that." She sent the message and set her phone down, feeling oddly at peace. Amanda had been another victim of Michael's selfishness, not a villain. There was no reason to carry anger toward her. That evening, after Gabriel arrived and they all sat down to dinner together, Victoria looked around her table. Caleb was telling Gabriel about his upcoming baseball tournament. Zoe was chattering about a project at school. Gabriel was listening with genuine interest, asking questions, being present. This was her family now. Different, blended, imperfect, but real. Later, after the kids were in bed and Gabriel was getting ready to leave, he paused at the door. "I was thinking," he said carefully, "this fall, maybe we could take a trip together? All four of us. Nothing fancy. Maybe a weekend camping or at the beach. If you think the kids would be comfortable with that." Victoria thought about it. A year ago, the idea would have terrified her. 6 months ago, she would have hesitated. Now, she found herself smiling. "I think that sounds perfect." Gabriel kissed her softly, a gentle press of lips that promised nothing more than what it was in that moment. "I love you, you know. I'm not asking you to say it back. I just want you to know." Victoria felt her heart, that organ she'd been sure was permanently broken, expand with warmth. "I love you too," she said, surprised by how easy the words were, how true they felt. After Gabriel left, Victoria went upstairs and checked on her children. Both were asleep, Caleb with his arm thrown over his head, Zoe clutching her favorite stuffed elephant. She stood in each doorway for a moment, overwhelmed with gratitude for these two humans who'd survived their parents' divorce and were becoming remarkable people in spite of it, maybe even because of it. Then she went to her own room and sat on her bed, looking around at the space she'd created. The walls painted in a color Michael would have hated. The books stacked on her nightstand that reflected her taste alone. The photos of her and the kids, no longer trying to maintain the illusion of a perfect family. She thought about that morning almost 2 years ago when she'd opened a jewelry box and found a necklace meant for another woman. That moment had shattered her world. It had destroyed her marriage, upended her children's lives, forced her to rebuild everything from the ground up. And yet, sitting here now, Victoria couldn't bring herself to regret it. Not the discovery itself. Because that discovery had freed her from a marriage that was already dead, she'd just been the only one who didn't know it. That discovery had forced her to become someone stronger, more self-aware, more authentic. Michael had meant to give Amanda that necklace. He'd meant to maintain his double life indefinitely, slowly extracting himself from his marriage while building a new relationship on lies. His mistake, his carelessness in mixing up the cards, had been the thing that saved Victoria from years more of deception. She pulled out the jewelry box from her dresser drawer. She'd kept it, though she didn't know why. The necklace was still inside, still beautiful, still the exact style she would have chosen for herself if she'd been shopping. Victoria took it out and held it up to the light. For a long moment, she considered throwing it away. It represented betrayal, lies, the worst moment of her life. But as she looked at it, she realized it also represented the moment she'd started taking control of her life, the moment she'd stopped being a passive participant in her own story and became the author of it. She put the necklace on, studying herself in the mirror. It looked good on her, elegant, simple, perfect, and tomorrow she'd wear it to school. Not as a reminder of Michael's betrayal, but as a symbol of her own strength. A reminder that she'd survived the worst thing she could imagine and come through it not just intact, but better. The necklace that was supposed to be a gift of love from a cheating husband to his mistress had become something else entirely. It had become the catalyst for Victoria's transformation from a woman who'd lost herself in trying to be the perfect wife into someone who knew exactly who she was and what she deserved. She thought about Michael. somewhere across town, living his life with his new girlfriend, probably repeating the same patterns because people like him rarely changed. She thought about Amanda, hopefully learning from her mistakes and being more careful with her heart next time. She thought about her children, resilient and strong, learning from their parents' failures what not to do in their own future relationships. And she thought about herself, 42 years old, divorced, single mother, department chair, writer, Gabriel's girlfriend, Caleb and Zoe's mother, and most importantly, Victoria Hayes, a woman who'd taken the worst betrayal of her life and turned it into the beginning of her best life. She touched the necklace at her throat, feeling its weight, its presence, a reminder, a symbol, a promise to herself that she'd never again settle for less than she deserved, that she'd never again ignore her instincts or make herself smaller to accommodate someone else's lies. The woman who'd opened that jewelry box 2 years ago, who'd read a card meant for another woman and felt her world collapse, that woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who knew that love without honesty was worthless, someone who understood that being alone was better than being with someone who made you feel invisible, someone who'd learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing you ever do for yourself. Victoria turned off the light and climbed into bed, the necklace still around her neck. Tomorrow she'd wake up and make breakfast for her kids and go to work and maybe text Gabriel something funny and continue building this life she'd created from the ashes of her marriage. But tonight, she fell asleep with a smile on her face, the necklace warm against her skin, and the certain knowledge that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, living proof that sometimes betrayal doesn't destroy you. Sometimes it just destroys everything that was holding you back from becoming who you were always meant to be. And Victoria Hayes had become someone remarkable. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.